Welcome to Quora Anonymous. If this is your first time and you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read along, turn on closed captioning with the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Now, let's begin. What is your dirtiest sexual experience as an adult? When I was 12, we moved onto a street where the foothills started at the top of our street. My older brother, 6 years older, was into dirt bikes, and he got me into them also. I had a small, older bike that he helped me buy with my lawn mowing money. My mom was always a little nervous about me riding, but that was just her nature. She knew I loved it, so she dealt with her worries. One Friday, I came home from school, and since it was the weekend, I didn't have to do homework right away. It was in the spring, late April or early May. It had been raining and this was the first day it hadn't rained for a while, but it was still cool. I was dying to go out riding. At that time, about 50 years ago, we didn't have the nice riding gear that exists now. I had a pair of old Levi that mom sewed padding onto for me. I had some old army boots from the army surplus store and leather garden gloves. Of course, I always wore a helmet, but they were open-faced at that time. It was metal flake blue. On this day, I reasoned that it was going to be cold, so I chose to wear a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt instead of my padded Levi. Bad idea. I was excited to get out there and feed my addiction, twisting the throttle and feeling the thrill of controlling the power beneath me. I was able to push my bike up the incline to the top of the street, and then I could take a trail up a steeper hill to the canal road. From there, I could follow the canal a couple miles to a crossover road that led me to the foothills with lots of trails through the sagebrush and scrub oak. There was a wealthy subdivision close to the riding area and some of the kids from there would come out and ride with me. I was the only one from my neighborhood lucky enough to have a dirt bike. This day, no one else was there, which was disappointing. It was cold and the flannel sweats helped little, if any, to keep me warm. I rode for about half an hour, and it was really muddy, cold, and there were no friends to ride with. I decided to head back home, but first I rode over to a favorite hill that I like to climb. I remember stopping at the bottom and contemplating for a while if I should try it or not. My Honda 90 was not doing that well in the mud and the trail up the hill was really muddy and even rutted. Ultimately, I decided to take the challenge and got a run at it. I was very near the top when my front tire slipped into the rut and my back tire slipped out from under me. I bailed off, and the bike fell over on top of my legs. The tailpipe burned my leg just above my knee. It was so muddy that I started sliding down the hill, as if I was sledding on snow, with the bike lying on my legs. When I stopped at the bottom of the hill, I assessed the damage. My leg was burnt from the tailpipe, and I lifted the bike enough to squirm out from under it. Nothing felt broken. My backside was covered in mud, and it was caked all up my back under my sweatshirt. I remember laughing at myself. The worst thing was that when the bike landed on me, it had smashed one of my balls. That was some serious pain. I stood up and got my bike upright, and that's when I discovered another issue. The hillside was covered with those weeds with small barbed burrs that we called puncture weeds. They could pierce bicycle tires and flatten them. Well, on my slide down the hill, thousands of those nasty little burrs had pierced my flannel sweats and boxers and embedded themselves into the back of my legs, butt, and crotch. It was miserable. There was nothing to do about it but get my bike started, which took a while, and make my way home, standing up the entire way. Sitting on those burrs was excruciatingly painful. Here's the part where my mom comes into the picture. I got home and parked the bike in the backyard. I tried to enter the basement door where I could avoid mom seeing me, but no luck. It was locked. So when I entered from the carport, mom was in the kitchen and turned to greet me. Her eyes widened and she gasps, "What happened to you?" I explained and asked for her advice on how to get the burrs out of my backside. She sent me downstairs to strip out of my muddy clothes. She tossed down a towel to wrap around me and then drew a hot bath with Epsom salts in it. I walked like a bow-legged cowboy up the stairs and into the bathroom with the towel around my waist. We were a very modest family and no one had seen me naked since I was 8 years old. I was in the beginning stages of puberty. My wiener and balls had started getting bigger, but no hair or other significant changes had begun. I'd been prematurely introduced to what my wiener was capable of by an older neighbor boy when I was 6 or 7 years old. That's another story, but because of it, I had a heightened fascination with my genitalia. Mom left me a pair of tweezers to use to extract the burrs and some antiseptic cream to rub on the bloody scrapes on my back. I had not yet confessed to the burn just above my left knee or the still tender testicle. I was afraid that would risk being banned from future riding. I was able to get some of the burrs out, but with them being on my backside, it was impossible to get most of them out. Also, it was just the spines of the burrs that had broken inside my skin. That made it like picking out thousands of tiny slivers. Mom. I cried out through the door. What do you need? She replied from the other side. I can't get them. I can't reach them. What else can I do? They hurt. There was a long pause before she answered. Unlock the door and lie face down on the rug, she instructed. Tell me when you're ready, and I'll come in and help. I was suddenly mortified. My mom was not only going to see my naked body, she was going to be touching it. I thought about waiting for Dad, but he was out of town for the whole weekend and I couldn't stand to wait that long. There was no alternative. Okay, I finally agreed. When I laid down, I was very careful to pull my wiener up against my tummy, so she wouldn't see it. I had some embedded in the base of it also, but I reasoned that I could get to those on my own. Ready, I stammered. I think I was shaking slightly from nerves. Mom entered and knelt beside me. I remember as though it was yesterday as she gently placed her soft hand on my thigh and slowly glided over my naked butt cheek, across and down the other side. Oh my, she said. There's so many. I know, I said, a bit tearful. For probably the next hour, she pinched my thighs and butt cheeks with one hand, while plucking the spines out with the tweezers. At first, I felt so embarrassed, and I could feel how flushed my face was. After a while, it was necessary to spread my legs apart, to allow her access to the inner part of my thighs and crotch area. As she worked in this section, she would unavoidably brush against the backside of my balls. Just the idea of someone touching them, however inadvertently, triggered something in my psyche. Maybe because of the things I'd done with a neighbor boy, or maybe because she was my mother and this was so far outside anything I would ever think of letting her see or do. I kept telling myself she was just getting the burrs out. It was just like if a doctor was doing it. Nothing helped prevent the erection. I was further mortified that I had gotten an erection from my own mom seeing and touching me. I felt guilty for no good reason. I wasn't even sure what I was guilty of, but I just felt like I was being bad for not being able to control my erection. Like I was perverted somehow. It was my mom, after all. This was just not what should happen. I guess I tensed up over all this mental anguish, because she stopped what she was doing, placed her hand on the back of my head, and turned me to face her. She leaned up, so I could see her. What's wrong? She asked. Try to relax. I can't get them out when you're so tense. I couldn't even answer. I just shrugged and shook my head a little. Moms are so smart and perceptive. It's okay. I'm sure this is awkward for you. You don't have to worry if it's giving you strange feelings. A boy's body is like that. It's probably strange for you, since I'm your mother, but don't be embarrassed. It's natural. It would happen to any boy in this situation. I used to give you baths all the time, remember? I nodded acknowledgement. Just because you're older, it seems different, but it doesn't have to be. Don't be embarrassed. I love you, and I want to help you. All you need to feel is relief that we are getting them out. I'll be as careful as I can to avoid your privates, but I'm afraid I'll have to touch them some to get all the thorns out. Are you okay with that? I was okay with that. I was mostly okay with the part about any boy would have the same weird feelings, and it wasn't just me who was some kind of pervert. I relaxed. Mom went back to her work. She was being more cautious to avoid my sack, but occasionally she would brush against it. A couple of times she would apologize for it, but I told her it was okay, that I understood. Trying to get to a particularly stubborn one, she pressed a bit too hard against my tender ball and I winced. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I kind of got banged in that one when the bike fell on me," I admitted. "It's still sore." Gently, she rubbed it between her thumb and finger, then did the same to the other one. "Does that hurt?" she asked. "The left one does," I answered. "It doesn't seem swollen. It's probably okay. If it's not better tomorrow, we better go to the doctor and have it checked out." I didn't like the idea of that. I could only imagine the horror of having Dr. Anderson staring at and handling my balls. I knew his son at school and could imagine him bringing it up at the dinner table. Just casually mentioning to his son, Barry, that he'd felt up my balls at the office. When she had gotten all of the thorns out that she thought she could, she rubbed the antiseptic cream on my scrapes and taped some gauze over it. She rubbed her hand across my back and said, "That's all I can get for now. There's still a lot that won't come out. They will work themselves out in a while. Tomorrow, you can take another hot bath and we'll try again." "Thanks, Mom," I told her. She smiled, knelt back down, and kissed my cheek. "You're welcome, son." When she left, I just laid there for a minute or two basking in my mother's love. There was something powerfully bonding in that experience. I realized it had been uncomfortable for her as well as for me, but she had done it anyway. She knew my feelings, and she was sensitive to them. The touching of my privates had been arousing, because I'm a boy and that's a natural reaction. I'd been getting spontaneous erections for a while by then, and from far less stimulation than that. Sometimes I'd experience them with no apparent trigger. After our little talk about it, I had relaxed. I started to enjoy and appreciate her gentle touch and her kindness to get the thorns out for me. By the end, I was sorry for it to end. Hopefully, this isn't way too long. Move on if you're done with it. If you're still interested, I'll share what happened over the next couple of days as we continued working on getting the rest of them out. I got up and wrapped the towel around me to get to my room. My erection had gone down, and I dug through my drawers for some clean boxers. I had only just switched from tighty whities to boxers, since I was going into junior high the following school year. My older brother had suggested that I switch before going into the gym locker room. As a result, I only had 3 pair from the one trial pack that Mom purchased for me. All were dirty. I tried to pull on the briefs, but they were impossible to wear with all the remaining thorns. Wrapped in the towel, I went to the kitchen to announce my problem. Mom smiled and said she would do wash later, but for now, I could just keep the towel on. She arranged some pillows on the TV room floor, and I laid on my stomach, propped up on pillows, so I could watch it. Friday nights was probably the Sonny and Cher show that we always watched together. My older brother came home while we were watching TV and asked what the heck was up. I explained what happened, and he started laughing his butt off. Mom started to scold him, but I was laughing really hard over it too, so she just joined in. We all had tears in our eyes as I described how I had to lay on the rug while Mom dug the thorns out of my backside. I ended up sleeping naked on my stomach side with just a sheet draped over me. Mom kept the heater on all night, so I wouldn't freeze. When I woke up the next morning, I used the bathroom and inspected my backside in the mirror. Hundreds of small red spots were everywhere. I grabbed the tweezers, sat on the toilet seat, and pulled as many of them out as I could reach. It didn't hurt me to sit as much as it had the day before. When I made my way into the kitchen, Mom had the cereal and a bowl set out for me. "Eat some cereal while I draw you a bath. Then we'll try to get some more of them out." "Can I have a look?" she asked. I unrolled the towel and let it fall from my backside, but held it against my front as she inspected my butt cheeks. "But," she said, gliding her hand over my bum, "some of them are festering, and will be ready to come out." I ate my cornflakes standing up. I could sit, but it was just more comfortable not to. The bath felt nice. The Epsom salts felt soft against my skin. I didn't really wash with soap, because I wasn't really dirty. I just laid in the tub, and rubbed my hands over my skin. I got an erection or two in the process of soaking. After about half an hour, Mom knocked on the door, and suggested we get started. I drained the tub, dried off and laid on the rug. I was looking forward to this time with Mom. I suddenly had the desire for Mom to see more of me. I wanted her to see how much I'd grown since she'd bathed me back when I was 6. I remember the butterflies in my stomach as I pondered whether to do it or not. Finally, I pushed my wiener down instead of up and laid down. I knew when she spread my legs apart she would see it. I don't know why I wanted her to, but the urge for it was super strong. She came in at my call and started her work. When she finished what she could on the butt cheeks and upper thighs, she asked me to spread my legs. I hesitated just a moment, wondering if I'd done the right thing. Slowly, I spread them apart, rotating my head from left to right at the same time to rest my neck. There was an obvious pause. I held my breath, wondering what her reaction would be. Would she comment? Would she scold me? Would she just think I'd not considered that she could see it and ignore it? I waited for what seemed like a long time, but was probably only seconds. Then she did something I never expected. She pushed my legs a little further apart and asked me to lift my hips a bit. My mind raced. I wondered what she was thinking. I wondered why she wanted me to do this thing. She placed her hands on the sides of my hips to help lift me off the floor. Now my balls and wiener were dangling. She rolled the injured ball between her thumb and finger. "Does it still hurt?" she asked. "No," I answered honestly. "It's fine now." "That's good," she said. "Relax and lay back down." I did, and my wiener naturally fell against my tummy and was hidden from her view. I wondered if that was her plan all along. Either way, I'd let her see it. I was satisfied. She was spared the trouble of avoiding it. I somehow sensed she knew what I was up to. After all, moms know everything. Miraculously, I hadn't gotten an erection while she was checking my testicle. But as she started pulling thorns from my groin area, she was less careful to avoid my sack, and in fact, pushed it aside when she needed to in order to get at the thorns alongside it. I didn't mind. I was fully hard by the end of the session. She once again said that was all she could do for the time being. When she was gone, I rolled over and gave myself the tingles. She'd washed my boxers, and I was able to wear them along with some loose-fitting gym shorts. My back had scabbed over and was healing. I stayed inside all day Saturday, and before bedtime, we did another bath and plucking session. Sunday morning we decided we would skip church, and I hung out indoors with Mom again. After my morning bath, I was careful to tuck my wiener up against my belly. I'd let her see it, and that had satisfied whatever weird need I had for that. The day was spent watching cartoons and other TV shows, playing games with my mom, and working on my homework. My brother went to church on his own, then hung out at a friend's house afterwards. This time alone with Mom was precious. We laughed and joked around. I went out and inspected my bike with her. It was fine. No apparent damage was done. It did need washing, so I hosed it off. That night, it was time again for another round of thorn hunting. There had been significant progress made at this point. Mom suggested we could possibly just let the remainder work their own way out. I didn't want to miss another chance with Mom. I was actually looking forward to this time we shared. I wanted to feel her hands caressing my bare skin. I wanted to feel her gently brushing against my balls and moving them side to side. I wanted to feel the soft rug against my erection. So, I objected. After my bath, I already had my legs spread open for her when she came in. She pulled some from the easier spots, but then she said, and I'll never forget this, "I have gotten all I can with you on your belly. I just can't reach up where the rest of them are at. Maybe your father can help you with those tomorrow." Dad and I got along great, but this was not his kind of thing. I knew it. Mom knew it. We just stayed still for a while. Then I said it. "Dad's not good at stuff like this." She laughed. "No. He's not." Then I said it. "If you don't care, if you see me, I don't mind. You're my mom, right?" "I am," she agreed. I sighed a really big sigh and rolled over. My erection in full view, and standing proudly at attention. I watched Mom's reaction, unsure what to expect. She just took it all in for a minute. Then she pushed my legs apart and reached up to the side of the tub. She pulled a washcloth from the edge of the tub and draped it over my erection. It created a small tent. Then, she held my balls to the side and went to work plucking the nasty thorns from my upper groin. She handled my sensitive parts as necessary for about a half hour until she said that the job was done. She said any few remaining thorns would just work their own way out. "Thanks, Mom." "You're welcome, son. Love you." "Love you, too." It wasn't sexual. I wasn't abused or molested. She never mentioned it afterwards. My brother teased me occasionally about it. I didn't lust for her in any sexual way. It was, however, a very special bonding experience between us. After that, it seemed like our relationship was better. I was more quick to pick up my room or help with the dishes when asked. She was more sensitive to my feelings and took more time to ask me about my day and really listen to my answer. We played games and joked more freely. Maybe that's just my imagination, but I don't think so. I think that experience changed her as much as it did me. On Monday, I went to school. After school, my dad sat me down on the living room couch and we discussed what happened to me. Mom had asked him to just make sure everything looked okay to him. So, without any hesitation, I stood and dropped my drawers for him to check. He just took a peek and asked if my balls felt okay. I told him they did. He didn't touch me and said it looked like Mom did a good job. I pulled up my pants. For some reason, it seemed perfectly natural to let my dad see me naked, and I thought nothing of it. He set some new rules for the dirt bike. No more riding in the mud. No more riding when I was alone. If there were no other boys out riding, I was to come directly back home. I agreed and was relieved that it was not outright banned. The next day a book appeared on the kitchen counter. It caught my eye. I peeked into the pages and stopped on an illustration of a girl's privates. I slipped it into my school bag and read it secretly during study break every day. It was mostly over my head, but I got a few good things out of it. I was still shocked, however, the first time my tingles session culminated with an unexpected explosion. I guess I missed that chapter. If you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to subscribe.